The music was too loud, the cocktails too strong, and the dare far too ridiculous. But none of that stopped Clara Monroe from stepping into the elevator of the Crown Regent Hotel at nearly 2:00 a.m., a half-drunk smile on her lips and a heavy beat in her chest. "Top floor," her best friend slurred, giggling as she jabbed the button. 1 hour only, no backing out. Just crawl into an empty bed and pretend you're someone with zero self-respect. Clara was not the kind of girl who accepted dares. She was structured, calm, painfully private, the kind who still color-coded her planner and wore cartoon print pajamas. But tonight was different. Tonight was a blur of heartbreak and tequila. Just hours ago, she had walked into the apartment she shared with her boyfriend of 3 years, the man who once promised forever, and found him kissing someone else. Apparently, "we're on a break" translated to "I've already moved on." So when her friends dragged her to a noisy birthday bash in the middle of Manhattan, she didn't protest. When the drinks lined up, she didn't say no. And when the dare was thrown at her, Clara simply laughed like a girl who had stopped caring. For just one night, "Penthouse," she whispered to herself as she stepped out of the elevator. The hallway was eerily quiet, carpeted in deep velvet red, the soft yellow glow of wall sconces casting gold across the paneled walls. Clara scanned the room numbers, heart pounding, partly from adrenaline, partly from the alcohol still thrumming in her veins. At the end of the hall, one door stood slightly ajar. No noise, no light, as if someone had forgotten to close it after housekeeping. Clara looked around. No one. Then, as if it was the most natural thing in the world, she gently pushed the door open and stepped inside. The suite was massive, opulent in the way that whispered money, leather furniture, crystal accents, a breathtaking city skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows, a bucket of champagne chilling on a silver tray. Clara ignored all of it. Her cheeks burned with humiliation, but she was already here. The dare was simple. Get in the bed, stay an hour, leave before sunrise. And for some reason, she believed. This bed was empty. The bedroom was darker than Clara expected. Moonlight spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a silver glow across crisp, white sheets, turned down like they were waiting for someone. She hesitated for a single breath. Then, with trembling fingers, she slipped off her silk dress, folded it neatly over a chair, and slid beneath the cool, expensive covers. "This is insane," she whispered, but the bed held her like a secret. The mattress cradled every inch of her, and the linen was soft in a way that made her heart ease for just a moment. Clara curled into herself, closed her eyes, and let out a shaky laugh. Just 1 hour. 1 stupid hour. She didn't hear the front door open behind her. She didn't hear the quiet click of shoes against the polished floor. She had no idea that someone else had just entered the suite. Ethan Vale, tech investor, self-made billionaire, the man New York only knew through magazine profiles and whispered rumors, had just walked into his penthouse. He hadn't expected anyone, least of all a woman in his bed, naked. Her dark hair spilled across his pillows like it belonged there. He froze in the doorway, motionless. He didn't shout, didn't call security, didn't even speak. He just stared at her, small, curled up, utterly unaware of the world around her. Anyone else would have erupted. Instead, Ethan loosened his tie, exhaled slow and deep, and walked to the far side of the bed. Clara stirred slightly, but didn't wake. He peeled back the covers, slid in beside her, carefully, without touching, and stared at the ceiling like it held the answers to something he'd long forgotten. There was something in the way she slept, unguarded, vulnerable, like no one had ever warned her the world could be cruel, that pulled at something dormant in him, a flicker in a place long shut down, a memory of what it meant to feel anything at all. And all of this, every thought, every ache, came before she even opened her eyes. Clara Monroe had always lived on the sidelines of life, never the center of attention, not the kind of girl who laughed loudly or had perfect hair. She was quiet, observant, and more comfortable with a sketchbook than a dance floor. Growing up in a small Pennsylvania town, she learned early that the world rarely gave second chances to girls like her. Her mother worked double shifts at a diner. Her father left before she turned 10, and Clara spent her teenage years juggling school and part-time jobs just to afford community college textbooks. She didn't complain. She just survived. And for her, that was enough. At 22, Clara moved to New York on a scholarship to a small design institute. She shared a one-bedroom apartment with 2 other girls, picked up freelance design gigs whenever she could, and counted every dollar. She guarded her heart carefully, her body even more so, never one to trust easily, until she met Devin, her first boyfriend, her everything. 3 years wasted on a man who promised forever but delivered betrayal. The moment she caught him kissing a coworker 2 nights ago, something inside her shattered. She didn't cry, she just froze. Then her friends dragged her to a party, and now she was lying naked in a billionaire's bed. Not that she knew that yet. She woke up slowly, awareness pulling her out from the warmth of the covers and the softness of the sheets. For a moment, she thought she was in her own bed, but then she smelled the linens. Not the familiar cheap detergent of her cramped apartment, but cedarwood, leather, a hint of whiskey, and masculinity. She turned over and froze. There was a man lying next to her, facing away, shirtless, his broad shoulders rising and falling in a steady rhythm. His hair was dark and tousled, and even from this angle, Clara could see the sharp cut of his jawline. She gasped, bolting upright, clutching the sheet to her chest. The movement woke him. He slowly turned his head. Their eyes met, gray, cold, piercing. He didn't look confused or angry, just amused. "You're not the kind of alarm clock I usually wake up to," he said, his voice low and smooth, like velvet wrapped around steel. Clara's mouth dropped open. No words came out. He sat up, stretching lazily. "Don't scream. I hate noise, especially before coffee." She blinked. I thought this room was empty. I didn't know." Ethan Vale looked at her. Really looked. Not at the tangled hair, the flushed cheeks, or the oversized sheet clutched to her chest, but at the fear in her voice. The kind of fear that didn't come from being caught, but from being hurt. "Who dared you?" he asked calmly. Her face flushed deep red. "Just a stupid birthday party dare. I really didn't." "Clearly," he said, rising to grab a sleek black robe. He moved like a man who'd never apologized in his life. Confident, effortless, and dangerously composed. Clara turned away, only to sneak a glance back when he spoke again. "You can keep the sheet, but put something on. I want to talk." "Talk?" she echoed, confused. He turned to her, now fully dressed, arms crossed over his chest. "You broke into my penthouse, slept in my bed, and you're still here. You should be grateful I'm not calling the police." Clara scrambled to find her dress, her cheeks burning. "I'm sorry, I'll leave right now." He didn't move, just watched her quietly as she fumbled the dress over her head. "What's your name?" She hesitated. "Clara?" He nodded. "I'm Ethan." She already knew. Who didn't know the name Ethan Vale? The investment billionaire, the silent killer of the financial world? He was the man who turned failing tech companies into empires. No public dating, no scandals, no weaknesses. Until now. As she reached the door, he added one more line. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m., come back." Clara froze. "What?" "I want to talk," he repeated. "About how a girl who clearly doesn't belong here ended up right here." She turned slowly, voice trembling. I didn't mean to." "I know," he said, his voice softer now. "But you did." And Clara, for a reason she couldn't explain, nodded. So the next morning she came back. Not to explain, not because she owed him anything, but because something in his eyes had held her. and maybe, just maybe, she recognized that same emptiness in herself. Coffee steamed between them in a room of steel and glass. They sat across from each other, unguarded, no masks. "I'm not here to interrogate you," he said. "I just want to understand." Clara took a deep breath. "It was just a dare, my friend's birthday party. They thought it would be funny. I didn't know anyone was up there. I didn't mean to trespass." "You didn't trespass," Ethan said. "You touched something." She looked up. "What do you mean?" He stepped toward her, each movement deliberate. "That room has been empty for 5 years. No one's touched that bed. Since." He stopped, his gaze flickering. "It doesn't matter." Clara tilted her head. "Why didn't you kick me out?" He leaned against the edge of the desk. "Because it looked like you needed to be there, more than I needed you gone." Silence stretched between them. Then he said, "You've never done anything like this before." It wasn't a question. She nodded. "I don't drink. I don't party. I don't even jaywalk." Ethan almost smiled. "And yet you ended up naked in my bed." She flushed scarlet. "You really don't have to keep saying it like that." "About it's true," he said, eyes still on her. "You were vulnerable, unguarded, and yet not afraid. Why?" Clara looked away. "Because for a moment, I didn't feel invisible." That stopped him. "You're not invisible." "Most of the time I am," she said. "But lying there, I felt like I mattered, even if it was just for an hour." Ethan stared at her for a long moment. "You do matter." The words came out heavier than they needed to. He spoke like a man who rarely said anything without calculation, but this time felt different. He moved closer. "You didn't know who I was, did you?" "I knew your name," she said, "but I don't know your story." Ethan sat across from her. "That's the first honest thing someone said to me in years." From that day on, Clara came back every morning, not for work, not for money, just to talk. It started with coffee. Then came the questions. He asked her what she feared most. She answered, failure. She asked what haunted him. He said, silence. He asked what her first kiss was like. She replied, awkward and forgettable. She asked if he'd ever been in love. He said, once, and then never again. They didn't touch. They didn't cross the line. But the tension between them was always there, unspoken, uninterrupted. Ethan began adjusting his work schedule to fit their morning conversations. Clara started bringing her sketchbook to his office, quietly drawing while he worked. One morning, he looked up in the middle of a call and saw her sleeping on the sofa, curled up as if it belonged to her. He ended the call early just to watch her. Another time, she brought him lunch, homemade pasta in a plastic container. He ate every last bite. "You're the first person to feed me without expecting a deal," he said. She smiled. "Well then, you're welcome." They circled something neither of them could name, until the night that almost broke it all. Ethan had a charity gala. He invited her. No pressure, just come. Clara didn't belong at events like that. She borrowed a simple black dress from her roommate, tied her hair back, added just a hint of gloss. No jewelry, no sparkle. When she walked into the hotel lobby, Ethan was already there, and he froze when he saw her. "You look," he began, then stopped. Clara rolled her eyes, smiling faintly. "Don't get used to this one-time thing." They didn't talk much during the gala. Too many eyes, too many pretenses. But every time their gazes met, something quiet passed between them. Not lust, not longing, recognition. Toward the end, Clara slipped away to the balcony. Ethan followed, silent. She was leaning on the railing, looking out over the city. "You look uncomfortable," he said. "I'm not used to pretending." "Neither am I," he replied, stepping beside her. "Then why do you do it?" Ethan was quiet. Then, because pretending is easier than being seen. Clara turned her head to look at him, Her eyes softened. "I see you." He looked at her. Really looked. Not like the world did, through headlines or profit margins. She saw something deeper, and for the first time, he reached out. Not to claim, not to pull, but simply to hold her hand. Just a touch, but it landed like a vow. Her hand was cold, his fingers trembled. But they didn't let go. They didn't need to speak. From that moment on, something between them shifted. The days after the gala passed like fragments of a dream Clara didn't want to wake up from. Her mornings began with coffee in Ethan's office, their conversations drifting easily between the trivial and the profound. Afternoons were quiet moments spent together, no words needed, yet somehow always enough. Monday afternoon, the elevator stopped, between the 30th floor. A jolt, a flicker of lights, then silence. Clara gripped the railing tightly, her breath shallow. Ethan immediately wrapped an arm around her waist. "I'm here," he whispered. "I hate small spaces," she murmured. "I hate feeling helpless," he replied. They stood like that until the lights came back on and the elevator resumed its ascent. When the doors finally opened, he still hadn't let go. Not until she looked up and said, "You're shaking." And he was. That evening, they sat across from each other in the penthouse living room. The city lights poured in through the tall glass windows, bathing the space in a dreamy warmth. "I want to ask you something," Clara said. Ethan nodded. "Why me?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked to the bar, poured himself a drink, but didn't sip. "Do you remember the first thing I said to you?" Clara smiled faintly. "That I wasn't your usual kind of alarm clock?" He nodded. "What I didn't say is that I hadn't slept in that bed since the day my fiancé died." The room fell into stillness. "She was in a car accident, a hit and run, on her way to see me. That day, we fought. I told her she wasn't enough, that she didn't understand my world. She got angry, she left, and she never came back." Clara's throat tightened. "Ethan, I blamed myself. I still do." He looked at her, his eyes raw like an unhealed wound. "That bed became a shrine to silence. And then you came in, uninvited, unexpected, but real, unguarded. You didn't just lie on that bed. You broke something open in me." Clara's voice trembled. "Do you think I'm replacing her?" "No," he said gently. "I think you reminded me that I still want to be alive." They stood close, only a breath apart, the silence between them louder than any confession. Then he added, voice low and honest, "But I'm not ready to love." Clara looked at him. "And I'm not asking you to." He lifted a hand, brushing a loose strand of hair from her cheek. "Well, I need you close, even if I don't know what to call it." She closed her eyes. "Then don't call it anything." He smiled, soft, fleeting. "You're dangerous." "I'm no one," she whispered. "You're the first person in a very long time who made me feel like I was someone." From that night on, they fell into a rhythm neither dared to name. Clara didn't move in, but she was always there. She kept her own small life, still rode the subway, still cooked her meals, still went to design classes. But every night, without fail, she came back to him. Neither of them spoke about the future, no promises, but they both knew something real was building. Then came the scandal, and it hit Clara like a wave she never saw coming. A photo. No caption, no story, just a candid frame of her stepping out of Ethan's penthouse at dawn, hair undone, shoes in hand, eyes cast downward, like she hadn't fully left the night behind. A gossip blog posted it with a headline, "Mystery Woman Leaves Ethan Vale's Fortress, Lover or Leverage?" Within hours, the internet exploded. They dug up her old personal art account, screenshots of her sketches, even the private one of Ethan she thought no one had seen. The school called her in. A professor gently suggested maybe take a short break. Her classmates whispered, The shopkeepers near her building looked at her differently. Clara didn't tell Ethan. She didn't know how, but her silence said everything. He texted, waited, called, no reply, until the 7th night when he chose not to wait anymore. She found him sitting outside her building, no driver, no suit, just Ethan, looking like a man who'd finally stopped pretending. That night, he didn't ask her to come back, but he made her want to. She stepped out, quietly sat beside him. "I thought you disappeared," he said, eyes on the pavement. "I did," she whispered. "Because I didn't know who I was anymore in all of this." He looked at her. "You're the first person who made me want to feel alive again." Ethan didn't want to hide anymore, and this time, he wasn't just coming back to find Clara. He came to stand beside her, publicly, proudly, without hesitation. On a crisp fall morning, journalists were summoned to an unexpected press conference at Vale Group headquarters. No one knew why, only that Ethan Vale, the famously silent billionaire, would speak. Clara showed up because Ethan had sent one message: wear that white dress you love. She walked into a sea of flashing lights. The crowd turned to look, the girl from the rumors, the whispers, the headlines. But when Ethan stepped up to the podium, his eyes found only her. "Some stories begin with mistakes," he began, "and sometimes those mistakes lead us to the right person." He paused, then pulled out a velvet box, and in front of 100 cameras, Ethan dropped to one knee. "Clara Monroe," his voice low and steady, "you didn't just walk into my life. You walked into the quietest part of me and made it breathe again. Please, let me call you home." She didn't speak. Her answer came with quiet tears and a nod. The room erupted. 3 months later, they married on the shores of Maine, the place Clara once ran to when the world felt too loud. But this time, she wasn't running. She was walking into forever. Ethan held her hand in the soft sand, whispered, "The first time you came here, you wanted to disappear. This time, I came to make sure you never have to." 5 years later, Clara and Ethan sat on a beach blanket, their backs warm from the sun, watching 2 little girls, twin daughters with brown curls and ocean eyes, build castles in the sand and giggle into the breeze. Ethan leaned back, arm wrapped around Clara's shoulders. "You see," he murmured, "all of this started with one crazy night at an unlocked bed." Clara laughed softly, resting her head against him. "And ended exactly where we belong." In the distance, the girls called out, "Mommy, Daddy, look!" Clara and Ethan looked at each other. They smiled, and they knew this wasn't an ending. It was the beginning they fought to deserve. A story not built on perfection, but on something real. All from one stupid dare that changed everything.